What does it take to sell something in your content? That is the thing we're going to focus on today. In today's video, I'm sharing with you the 4 keys to selling in your content so you make more money and you have better conversions. So let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Crystal here today, and I am so excited to talk about the 4 keys to selling in your content. I feel like over on the Proffitt Podcast, this is my weekly show. If you haven't checked it out, it's going to be linked below. But I feel like over there, we have been talking a lot more about selling in your content whenever it comes to how often should you sell? How can you just sell one product? How do you create a product with your backlog? And there's just a lot of themes that have been coming up around selling in your content, which is why I wanted to make today's video all about the 4 keys that I have felt are just super vital to having successful sales campaigns within your content. Now, I use the term content to replace podcast, blog, or YouTube because I know that if you have one or all 3 of those, and you can add in social media, you can add in your email list, like there are a lot of different ways that you can approach selling in your content. And that's what I mean by content. It's all of those channels. It's if you have one of them or you have all of them, there are still 4 keys that I want to make sure that you are following. So again, you make more revenue and you have better conversions. So let's dive right in. Key number 1 to having awesome sales conversions in your content is you can't be afraid to make the ask. Now, what I mean by this is you got to have really clear calls to action. I've actually done a few videos right here, and I'm going to link to them in the video description, all about having really good calls to action, how to measure if they're working, and what to actually say in your content. But the bottom line is, if people aren't really sure what you're asking them to do, why are we assuming that they're going to do it? So I want to make sure that you're focusing on whether you have to write these out and actually put them in your notes whenever you're recording a podcast, to put a big block quote that says, say these words exactly. It's fine. Who cares? Who's going to see you reading that? Or if you're recording a YouTube video, then look at the camera and then do something fun where you look away, but you put something on the screen like what I'm doing right here and read out your actual call to action. That way, again, no one knows that you're reading it, but you have to be super, super clear on making the ask. That way people will actually go and buy your thing. How can they purchase what you're selling if they're not clear what they're supposed to do? So go check out all the resources that I'm going to link in the description, but you have to not be afraid to make the ask. That is key number 1. Key number 2 is you have to allow your audience to have a seamless experience. Now, what I mean by this is we've all been in the situation where we get really excited to buy something. Like we're actually at the point of saying, please take my money. I want the thing that you are selling. And then we click on a link and it's a broken link. And it sends us to a random page, or it sends us to the error page that's like, oh, this page actually doesn't exist, or it's something that takes forever to load. Then you're like, oh my gosh, is my computer getting a virus? Like as I'm doing this right now, what is happening? You don't want any of that. So you want to make sure that whatever you're selling, whether it's a digital course, you're selling a live event, you're selling a book, whatever it is that you're selling, make sure that your audience is having a seamless experience from your content to the product. And people often say, well, I checked it. It worked whenever I tried it. Well, that's not good enough. You need to at least ask a friend or family member and send them a link and say, hey, here's this thing. I'm going to say this on my podcast, or I'm going to mention this in my video description on YouTube. Can you make sure that everything looks good on your end? Because maybe something's funky on yours and it just looks great because you're a logged in user, or your internet's amazing, or I don't know. Like there's so many different weird things that can happen with technology, but it's your responsibility as the content creator, as the person that's trying to sell something. you need to make sure that your audience is having a seamless experience. So that is key number 2. And while we're here, I want you to tell me in the comments if you've had an experience where you got super excited about buying something that someone was selling and it didn't work out so well. Like, tell me how that made you feel. Were you frustrated? Were you confused? Like, tell me in the comments, because I'm so curious to know how you have felt as a consumer. And then I want y'all to go read everybody else's comments, because I bet that is how your audience is going to feel if you don't have this seamless experience whenever you're trying to get them from your content to the thing that you want them to buy. So tell me in the comments below how that has made you feel as a consumer. Okay, let's get back to the video. Okay, key number 3 that we need to talk about today is I don't want you to assume that everybody that is consuming your content right here, right now, is going to buy from you. I think that as a naive content creator, whenever I was first getting started, I just thought, well, if I make that call to action, anybody that listens to my podcast or anybody that watches my YouTube video is, of course, going to go and buy my thing. They're going to follow the call to action and they're just going to do the thing that I asked them to do. It was super naive of me. And I still see this today where content creators that just, they don't know. You just don't know. Maybe you're in my shoes whenever I was first getting started and you just don't know. So let me tell you the facts. Not everyone will convert to what you're selling or what you're trying to get them to sign up for, or even if it's a free lead magnet, like not everyone will convert because not everyone will be suited for what you are trying to sell. So something that I see a lot of content creators doing is they will create an entire podcast episode, an entire YouTube video, or maybe even a series of content all around one thing. And what you've done is you've concentrated so hard on the selling aspect. I'm going to sell this thing. I'm going to talk about the thing. I'm going to talk about how much it costs. I'm going to talk about, you're selling way too hard. You're way too aggressive in your content and it turns people off. And people don't listen anymore. And people just aren't that excited to come back to your podcast because they're like, gosh, the last 3 episodes, all she was doing was trying to get me to buy her program. I mean, if I was interested, I would have bought it, but it's not what I need right now. Or I just recently bought something just like that, so I don't need it. But she kept talking about it for the next few episodes, and I didn't go back to it. This is an actual experience of what I had. Like, it wasn't just making that story up. This actually happened to me. It's happened to me for YouTube channels that I've subscribed to. It's happened to newsletters that I used to love getting, and then all of a sudden it's just too aggressive. It felt super spammy, and it just didn't really work for me. So that's key number 3. Like, don't assume that everybody's going to want to buy the thing that you're selling right here, right now. What I want you to do instead is talk to the majority of your audience, not just the small minority that will want to buy, because they're out there. There will be buyers in your audience, but don't alienate all the other people that aren't ready to buy right here, right now, today. And this actually segues really nicely into key number 4 for selling in your content. You don't want to ask more than you give. And this is something that I actually am this is one of my principles. It's one of my values. It's something that I hold sacred as a creator. I want to add value to every single piece of content that I create, whether it's a podcast episode, a YouTube video, a newsletter, something that I put on Instagram. I mean, it is core to my values that I add value to this audience. So it goes back to not being an overly aggressive seller. There will be times whenever I put out a fully promotional video, like that is its only purpose, is I am trying to sell something. I'm selling it hard in this one video. Or there's a podcast episode that is dedicated to this one thing that I'm trying to sell, but that's the minority of the time. Most of the time, I am adding value. I am not asking more than I am giving. So this is one of the keys to selling in your content. You've got to add that value because, again, we've all been in the situation where we're thinking like, okay, I like this podcast. It's going pretty great. And then the ads start coming. And then more ads. And then, oh my gosh, like, are they even doing anything in this episode other than the whole episode was 30 minutes, but 27 of it were ads. Like, that's all they were doing. They were just selling every single time. Why am I going to come back to this if there's no value? So I'm not saying that you can't sell. Obviously, this whole video is about the 4 keys to selling in your content. I'm just saying you have to add that value first before you make the ask, okay? This is super, super important. Add value, make the ask, and you will just get so much further with your audience because they trust you. They know that you have the goods. They know that you have the valuable content, and hopefully they're going to stick around. They're going to become a fan of your podcast. They're going to subscribe to your YouTube channel, and they're going to continue to listen to what you have to say. And over time, they're probably going to buy everything that you offer because they know you, they like you, they trust you, and they know that whatever it is that you're selling is going to have value. This is the key around here. It is so important to me that I add value. It's actually a commitment. I put it on my website. It's a commitment that I have made to myself as a creator. I will always add value, but it's also a commitment I've made to you, my audience, because I want you to come back. I want you to come and hang out with me. I want you to post in the comments. I want you to join my Facebook group. I want you to hang out with us in our email newsletter. Like, I want you to find value whenever you come here because it is so important to me. So just know it is one of the things that I value most about being a creator, and I hope that you do as well. But that's all I have for you today. So if you found this video helpful, make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe below. That way you don't miss our other content that we put out every single week, all about content strategy and creating content with confidence. Check out these other videos right here that are made just for you. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.